Tabitha, and today I'm going to be talking about 7 tips for student teachers. First of all, if you are interested in becoming a teacher of any subject in any grade level, especially if you're interested in being a public school teacher and getting a state certification, you will definitely be expected to student teach at some point. I know that if you go to teach at a private school, you might not necessarily have to have done student teaching, but I know in general for public schools and for most state certifications, you need to have that experience student teaching. I personally student taught through my grad program at NYU. I was put in 2 different placements. So the first semester I was in a private high school in New York City, and then the second semester I was in a public elementary school in New York City. I know that for different subjects and different certifications it's different. For example, for a theater certification it's K through 12, so that's why I had 1 high school and 1 elementary to get the huge range of ages that I would be certified to teach when I got my license. I know for some teachers, if they're looking to get certified in elementary education, they might have 1 with younger kids and then 1 with like the older elementary ages, like 5th or 6th grade. These tips should be useful to anyone trying to be a teacher. These tips should be useful to anyone who is currently a student teacher, is planning on one day student teaching. Honestly, as far as the way student teaching works right now, you guys have a whole other amount of challenges facing your way with the pandemic, and I'm sure some of you guys don't have a really traditional student teaching experience, but either way, these tips should be able to still help you out. I know some student teachers, they're joining classes virtually through video chat, but I do know that some student teaching is happening in person right now, especially for schools that are in person, whether you're wearing masks and practicing social distancing and whatever protocols are in that school. It's really great that you're getting that crazy experience now that nobody else ever got that kind of experience teaching through a pandemic. So you will be more than ready for normal life teaching whenever this all ends. My first tip is don't get too comfortable being an observer. So what I mean is, before you usually student teach, usually for most programs you are an observer. So for example, in grad school for some of my classes I had to do some observations. This was before I ever student taught. This was towards the beginning of my grad program. So I would go into different schools in New York City and I would just be there to observe, not to teach whatsoever, and I would use the observations I made in these schools to write papers, to do projects. However, student teaching is supposed to be different than observing, and something that I personally felt, I'm very self-conscious, I'm very nervous, and when I started student teaching, I just slipped back into the patterns of an observer. My first day at the high school that I was student teaching at, I literally just sat there and observed and took notes like I always did when I was observing a class. To be fair, the teacher didn't seem to mind, the cooperating teacher I was student teaching with, but honestly, part of me wishes that either she had pushed me or that I had taken the initiative to not be an observer and to actually engage with her class right from the get-go. So if you're starting student teaching, don't slip back into an observer's patterns. Whether or not the teacher's going to push you to get out of it, you shouldn't do that on your own to yourself. Tip number 2 kind of goes hand in hand with the previous tip. Engage with your students as soon as possible. So you're going to eventually be expected to teach these students. You're going to want them to like you. You're going to want them to know who you are. You're going to want them to respect you. And that's not going to happen if you just put a little divide between yourself and them, or you just observe, or you're not comfortable in your own skin and you don't let yourself engage with them before that time actually comes. A big mistake I made in my first student teaching experience is that I didn't push myself to engage with them. I didn't ask my cooperating teacher to let me start teaching things. And the first time I actually taught them a lesson was when I was getting observed by one of my grad program advisors. And you definitely don't want that. You don't want the added pressure of you getting observed the first time you're even experiencing teaching this group of kids, the first time they're experiencing being taught by you. Honestly, I didn't engage with the classroom. They didn't really know my name when I started teaching them, and it was awkward because I had kind of let myself be this fly on the wall. It wasn't actually an easy transition from fly on the wall to now I'm your student teacher. Tip number 3 is ask your questions. So if during the day any questions come up about what a teacher did, what they taught, what happened with a student, or anything specific about their school or the way it works, no question is a bad question, and that is what that cooperating teacher is there for. They're supposed to be your mentor. They're supposed to be answering your questions. So don't be afraid to ask as many questions that come to your head during a day. Obviously, you don't want to be annoying, but honestly, if it's something that is important to you and it's something that you feel like would make you a better teacher to know the answer to, do not be afraid to ask the questions. Number 4 is say yes to everything. And another way of saying that is that no job is too small. So if your cooperating teacher asks you to make copies, that might sound like annoying secretary work that you don't want to do, but honestly, everything is helpful. For example, I did not know how to use a big school copier when I started my student teaching, and then my teacher asked me to copy a bunch of scripts. So it was actually really helpful that I had that experience of learning how to copy huge amounts of scripts, because that is something I do now as a drama teacher. Your teacher asks you to do a warm-up. If they ask you to do one lesson or to print things out or to come up with an idea for this lesson, or even on the other spectrum, if they're asking you, if they're giving you all these jobs and they're giving you more jobs than you expected, take it, though. You have no idea how valuable that is. So it might seem overwhelming at the time. You have no idea how much more confident you're going to be going into your first full-time teaching job when you had all those responsibilities as a student teacher. It'll be so much more seamless for you. Next tip is really, really important. Discuss with your cooperating teacher from the get-go what your role is. So discuss with them what you're expecting out of student teaching, and most importantly, listen to what they're expecting you to bring to their classroom. That is a mistake that I made. I did better with my second cooperating teacher in making sure that we both had these expectations. With my first one, I couldn't really tell where she wanted me, and honestly, I was too scared to ask. I just thought I was going to be told, but definitely take that initiative if they're not the ones bringing it up. Because think about it, you've never student taught before. Maybe sometimes your cooperating teacher hasn't had a student teacher before, so maybe you need to take that initiative and help them through the process as well. And if they have had a student teacher before, they might get so comfortable they'll forget that you need to be told what exactly your job is. And it's not a set in stone thing. I don't think any of my grad school friends and I don't think any of us had the same type of student teaching experience. It's so tailored to the teacher you're with. It's so tailored to the school you're in and your environment. So definitely try to get as much information from the get-go as to what your teacher expects of you, and let them know what you're hoping to get out of it as well, so that they can hopefully tailor the experience more to your needs. Number 6, take ownership of your school. I really wish I had done that. I don't think I did that in either of my placements, but I've noticed it here when my coworkers have student teachers, that a lot of these student teachers are so confident and so wonderful, and they honestly take ownership of their school. It's like they work here, they get themselves comfortable, they socialize with other teachers that aren't their cooperating teacher, they eat lunch with people, they go to after school events, they'll act like it's their job and this is where they work. And honestly, I wish I had done that, just because giving yourself, again, that experience will make it feel so much less weird when you're doing it for the first time as a full-time teacher. So honestly, pretend you're going to work, pretend these are your coworkers, and you're going to get so much more out of it. And my 7th and final tip is to ask for feedback. Feedback is honestly something that scares me, just because I don't like being told that there's something that I did that wasn't the best or that I could do better. I'm a people pleaser, so I like to be told that everything I did was wonderful. And especially when you're looking into getting a career, sometimes you're like, oh, if someone says I didn't do a good job, I'm going to be a horrible teacher, and you over dramatize in your head. Definitely ask for feedback. Don't take it personally. And honestly, when are you going to be able to try things and experiment and make mistakes without the added pressure of this being your actual job that you're getting paid for? No one is expecting anything of you. That principal didn't hire you. It is for you to learn. So after you do a lesson, after you do a warm-up, after you do anything, ask your cooperating teacher what they thought, what edge them on, ask them what you could do better, because all that's going to do is make you a better teacher in the future. honestly, you're never going to get that experience again, to have someone watching you and being able to give you that feedback. And depending on how many years they've been a teacher, it could be some great feedback that you don't want to wait that long to learn yourself. Right, those are my 7 tips for student teachers. I hope all of you out there student teaching right now during this crazy time, I honestly commend all of you. I hope you found at least one of these tips helpful. And if you're planning on student teaching way in the future, I hope this got you at least excited at the prospect of one day being a student teacher. Honestly, the experience is what you make of it, so do your best. And I am sure one day you're going to have kids that are so lucky to be in your classroom. So have a great day. Good luck to all the prospective teachers of any subject out there. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.